The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Daytona International Speedway for the 14th installment of the Superspeedway 500 as we officially get another season of Superspeedway Cup Series action kicked off. And as always, happy to be with you on LSRTV and iRacing Live. Myself, Evan Pasoko, going to be joined topside by Rachel Whiteford over the course of tonight. Chris Murdoch also going to be topside, as always, downstairs and pushing the buttons and bringing us to you tonight is Cisco Scaramuza. We'll talk about this race and what we're going to be expecting in this 14th season of action in just a moment. First, we will go trackside and take a look at tonight's LSRTV starting grid for the first points race on the year. Mark Jorgensen Jr., the number 88 machine, is going to start on pole position tonight. He'll be joined by Rod Flagg, who rolls off P2. Brandon Chaburko and Ray Rittenauer are going to make up row 2. They'll start third and fourth with Matt Quick inside of the top 5.
Starting in 6th place tonight will be Shane McEachin, Dan Harrington in 7th, Josh Hanna in 8th place, Glenn Hedrick and Jarrett Haggerty in 10th.
11th position in qualifying tonight belongs to Brandon Cruz Monsivais with Rodney Wofford on his right-hand side in P12. Unlucky number 13 spot tonight on this Friday the 13th belongs to Mr. Paul Servin. Scott Warren will start 14th and Derek Walker in 15th.
16th place goes to Gary Champion with Corey Henry in 17th. 18th is Frank Brasilla III, Roger Stewart in 19th and Chris Bassini in 20th.
Dwayne Cooper, Larry Camp, Remote Evans, Josh Ball, Dana Osborne, the next 5 through 25th.
26th through the end of your field, Andrew Berger, Garrett Atwell, Ray Sanders, Andy Kessler, of course LSRTV's own, Daniel Holloway, Josh Vickery, Dominic Dyball, and Joel Wood in 33rd and last.
To look top to bottom at your LSRTV starting grid, lights already off on top of the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car as we get set for what is going to be the single longest race on this new season. 124 laps around the high banks at the World Center of Racing to get this championship kicked off. And as always, we are happy to be with you live tonight on LSRTV and iRacing Live. The pace car going to make the sharp left-hand turn down and away. It's going to be the number 88 Chevrolet in control. American Ethanol, green flag flies. We're racing for the first time on the year. Green flag in the Superspeedway 500.
Good start by the first few rows, of course. 3 wide, a little bit further back already. We have some cars moving up. That is the number 84, I think, on the outside. Although, but actually, for Frank Brasilla III, he was going places already, Evan. 3 wide starting move there. He wants to make a statement.
If you were with us 1 week ago, you saw the Super Duels in which Mark Jorgensen Jr. and Brandon Chaburko went to victory lane on. Those are names that no doubt we're going to be talking about over the course of the night. And Chris, again, tonight much longer than all the other races. From this point on, we're going to be going back and forth between Daytona and Talladega. When we're in Lincoln, Alabama, it'll be 94 laps. When we're back here in Daytona Beach, Florida, it's going to be 100-lap races. So this is a longer race than normal. However, I don't think that these guys are really going to drive it all that differently based on how aggressive we know historically they like to take it really from the drop of the green flag to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course, it's one of those races where we see this sort of thing, but you know, these guys have to be patient. It is a long race, and I think you're talking to Chris, so I'll pass you back to him.
Yeah, definitely. Daytona is always an interesting track, guys. It's where you want to make a good impression on the league, and it's just very tricky, not as wide as, you know, the other super speedway, Talladega, and it's definitely the tricky of the two. You got to be careful going into these corners. The cars can get a little bit upset, and we may see that a little bit later on in the run, Evan.
This season is going to be carrying through 20 different races, so, well, tonight may not necessarily be that make or break moment when it comes to the chase for the championship was another thing that's going to be back in this season of Superspeedway Cup Series action. There is that excitement, and I guess that nostalgia, Rachel, if you will, about that first race on the year. Sure, I think things are going to be more important when we start talking about race 12, 13, and 14, because those will be the final 3 races before the chase. That's when things get important. So tonight, in the overall scheme of things, isn't too critical, but everybody wants to come back, especially seeing as long as these guys have been off again all through really the last 2 years in between seasons. These guys haven't had a lot of time for an off season. In fact, for the most time, they have a championship race one Friday, 7 days later the season opener starts. These guys have been off for a long time, so they're really kind of ripping and rearing to go.
Absolutely, and of course, as you mentioned, this is first races, and it also means there's nothing really to gain here but make a statement for that season. So these guys are all going to go out here. We're going to see some really cool racing tonight, and it's going to be a fantastic one. And we're still seeing 2 wide, really tight racing up here at the front. As we've got a move on the outside. There's 4 front cars there starting to get a groove going. And that is the number 22 of Brandon Jaberko on the front row there as the 10 goes high and goes backwards at the Rod flag. He's not quite happy to be here, so he's dropping back.
And he's going to be in that 3rd lane again at Daytona, a little bit tighter compared to a place like Talladega, but it looks like you might find a spot here as the 94 and the 1 gave him some space going through the trial. It'll double file back out once he drops back just a little bit. He'll drop back about outside of the top 10, though, I think, before he gets his legs back underneath him. So far, so good for Mark Jorgensen Jr., the driver who won the Drive for Autism Pole Award tonight with a 47.593 at 189 miles per hour. Has been able to really dominate up until this point, but Ray Rittenauer in the 87 Chevy goes to the outside, and he actually comes up in front of that 22 at Jaberko. We'll see if he has anything this time off the forward.
Yeah, we certainly will, of course. And as it's moving, look at this. This is the number 87. Ray Rittenauer there, going to that very front there. He could pull down. We'll see if he's going to make a statement. Will he pull the 22 with him of Brandon Jaberko? Brandon's pulling him, so they're going to stay together. He wants to make friends early on. There is no point dropping someone like that so soon, so close to the start of this race, and perhaps burning one of those bridges, Evan. So this outside line, I think they're going to stick together up here and keep this one moving, just maintain this 2 wide here at the front, which is good news for the guys behind him, of course. It provides more airflow to stay in this front draft pack. So, but we have seen actually a bit of a breakup already. Some drivers dropping back at this time. That starts really back with the number 5 car in 18, Gary champion Roger Stewart there. That's a real first drop there.
It's always funny because, you know, we talk about the regular season races, which are all 250 miles in length. Again, tonight just a little bit further than that for the Superspeedway 500. But we always talk, even in those races, you would think maybe in the opening 1/3, 1/2 of the race, these guys would back it off a bit, get single file, and we do see that happen. Ironically enough, though, really doesn't happen till later in the year when you have guys trying to conserve points. These guys, I have no doubt, are going to maintain some form of 2 wide over the course of the night. The lead pack really isn't everybody at the moment. It's about the top 14. They're within 0.7 of a second of each other. Recovers Mark Jorgensen P1 all the way back to Corey Henry. There is a single file line around the 20s that has dropped back off of the lead pack, and those are the guys who really don't want to get mixed up in these things too early, but that does nothing to ignore the fact that we still have about 7 rows of side by side inside of those top 10.
Yeah, we're certainly doing. These guys are coming up on some lap traffic already. This could make things a little bit interesting. That is, I believe, one of the cars has been down pit road at the start here. That is the 28 car, Shane McKeechin, who is not in a good position early on. Jared Haggerty also 4 laps down at this time, so this is shaking things up already for a few drivers. Some guys really not starting this race where they would want to be, Evan. But at the moment, out front, it's getting a little closer, and it's Dan Harrington at the moment, our number 82 machine. He's push to the 88 car up there. Mark Jorgensen Jr. getting a good move, but Jaberko, he's not letting go there, and he has the 87 car behind him. Ray Rittenauer the second, giving him a great push.
And the guys at the outside really aren't concerned at this point of giving those guys at the bottom any room. Sure, they're not right on that passenger side door pinching down, but they're not giving them a whole lot of space. And at 82 is in a little bit of a tight spot. Brandon Jaberko with the push. he'll go to the point, and well, we have seen other drivers lead at the stripe. It's the first time tonight somebody is in front of your pole sitter Mark Jorgensen Jr. Jaburko looking to lead lap number 9 of 124 on the night, and good run off the quarter number 4 is going to be able to do that for him. Now the 82's roll is placed in the hands of the 88 of Mark Jorgensen. That second car in line on the bottom, well, he'll go right back up to the top, and Jaburko tries to box him in. He can't do it. I was going to say, though, that second car in line on the bottom plays a critical role in helping that guy in front of him push to keep up momentum for the inside, and Mark Jorgensen Jr. was having none of that and made that one look easy. As he goes back to the race lead on the outside, he'll bring the 87 with him.
He certainly does. And this is really about making a statement early on, Evan. These guys, they're just kind of posturing around. They're seeing how easy it is to get a run going with the traffic around them, so something they'll save up in their mind for later on in this race. So right now, they're just testing the water. They're not really trying to make big aggressive moves, but Jaburko does the exact opposite of what I'm saying and dives straight back out the front there. But they're really feeling this one out. They're just trying to enjoy themselves, get used to the racing again, get used to everybody else in his field. And of course, there's a big move there by Mark Jorgensen Jr. as he moves up and then goes back down again. They're testing a lot here. Of course, you saw them last week out at the Jules, and they tested the heck out of their cars that time. But hopefully they'll be a little more patient this time, and we'll see that first green flag stop.
Yeah, those duels are always something that is exciting to see here on LSRTV. The top 2 qualifiers will create the front row for the race here tonight, and as well the odd finishing qualifiers in duel number 1. The even qualified drivers went into duel number 2. That's how we racked them and stacked them for tonight's race. So far, so good, clean and green for the opening 10 laps. A little bit of a door bang there in a battle for second. The driver on the inside was Ray Rittenauer, got up into Jaburko. We've seen a lot of moves by both that 22 and even your race leader Mark Jorgensen up and down the racetrack, trying to control the speed and the flow of both lanes, and you've seen at least both of them at one point, Rachel, make a move to the outside of the racetrack, trying to slow down the momentum. These guys, kind of as you said, they're experimenting, trying to see just what they can get away with as this new season gets underway and try to get back into the rhythm of things first time out on track with a 30-plus car field.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the critical component here, of course. This season, they haven't been in a field this big, as we've got a lot of movement going on there. It's up to the low side there. Brandon Jaburko gets the runners. It's 3 wide for your race lead across the stripe for lap number 13. Was that perhaps a lucky omen? I don't know, but 3 wide behind Brandon Jaburko, your new leader. And this is getting very intense, Evan.
Yeah, not a lot of space at Daytona to maintain the 3 wide. The 2 probably would have gotten left out to dry if that 94 of Frank Basilia hadn't gone with him. The 94 went up, the 88 stayed at the bottom. That's what forced that 2 rows really deep of the 3 wide action. The 2's going to luck out here. He'll find a hole back in line, back in front of Basilia. But the big winner in all of that, I think, was that 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr., who was able to go to the number 1 spot as far as the drivers running on the outside of the racetrack. He can't fall behind that 87 of Rittenauer. You see, side by side for second. If that 87 gets clear on him, you might see him do what you just saw Jaburko do, and that is move up the racetrack, but it's pretty clear as we go 3 wide for the race lead at lap number 14 that these guys are not in a cooperating mood, and now that 88's the only driver up on that 3rd lane.
Yeah, he certainly is. The 88, so shuffling back a bit here. Perhaps he wants to go back, wants to down under the pressure for a while, but Brandon Jaburko, he certainly wants to be in that position there as he's going to control these 2 lanes. The 88 there really in a really risky position. He doesn't want to be up there for long, of course. It's going to take him a while to find a hole to drop down to even 2 wide here, so he's going to have to be very, very careful as they were nearly 3 wide again, a little bit further back there. But he should have an opportunity soon to drop in line. We've seen him definitely gauging his car's size very effectively, so he can find those gaps as he nearly makes the mistake there. And that 88 car nearly making contact. He can't get down. He wants to get down, but he finds himself 3 wide yet again.
Yeah, not nearly as fortunate as some of the other guys we saw when they got mixed up 3 wide. That 2 machine of Josh Hanner went up there and was able to find a spot right back in line. He's battling for the race lead. Jorgensen, on the other hand, has fallen outside of the top 10. Again, plenty of ways to go. I have no doubt that, well, he is that far back in the numbers. He's only about 0.6 of a second off of the top spot. He'll be able to find help, and when he wants to, get back into this battle for the guys up front. But at least for the moment, you have to subtract that number 88 machine from the equation. The outside going to be the race leader that time by. He'll swoop back down to the bottom. Brandon Jaburko exactly where we expect the 22 Ford to be, and that is being aggressive to maintain P1 and the opening 10th of this race. Really, that 22 is somebody who will come to the racetrack with the objective of leading every single lap, and you can see that determination early. He'll have a challenge from the 2 this time down the super stretch.
Yeah, he said he will. The 2 getting a good run on the outside, but again, we're going to say he's not going to really, we think he's not going to pull down and drop the cart, pushing him, that number 94 of Frank Basilla III, so expect him to try and pull him with him to get a cushion over Brandon Chaburko, of course. He doesn't want to be just in front of him. He wants to get a good position change on that car, so of course this will make it interesting. We'll see if we can get past this time, but it's going to take to the back stretch before we can really see if that will work, of course.
Things continue to spread out a little bit more and a little bit more. In fact, there's a lot of single file just off of these guys up front. Again, about 5 laps into the race, we still had about 7 sets of side-by-side. We'll go 3 wide this time, but it's going to be with lap traffic. Jared Haggerty going to fall now a 7th lap down after originally being scheduled to roll off of pit road in the number 10 position to start this race. Not going to be too difficult for these guys to get by because they have spread out quite some bit. Still side-by-side going on inside of the top 10, but it is no longer that side-by-side for 2nd, and then 4th, then 6th, then 8th, and on. You do see side-by-side for 2nd at the moment, a little bit further back for 5th, so there is a little bit more breathing room, which you think would calm things down, Rachel, but you give these guys an inch, and they'll take a mile, and just giving them a little bit more space at a racetrack means that they're only going to think a little bit more creative on what kind of moves they're going to try to make on each other.
Yeah, certainly, of course, and we're on lap number 18 here of this 125 lap race, so they want to make sure they've done their testing now, and this is halfway through our first run. They don't want to be doing too much more, so we expect things to stay a little bit more calm now. They're not going to be trying to move around quite as much. This outside line has stayed strong, though, which is impressive for me, that this higher line has been lasting longer, but could also be a good place for them to be in terms of their tyres. And as you can see further back, the 88 machine, of course, of your pole sitter. And this one, Mark Jorgensen Jr., he stayed on that high lane, so could benefit him later on in those tyres as Basilla III goes to the pole with Chris Bassini.
Frank Basilla, a past series champion here with the Superspeedway Cup Series, has himself in a good position getting the Superspeedway 500 underway. This is a race that has been going on for a couple of years, stemming back to Season 5. We have never seen a repeat winner in the history of the Superspeedway 500. Is now Bassini going to battle back on the outside. The push from Hanner going to put that number 1 Chevrolet into the number 1 spot. Not enough space to bring the 2 with them. Hanner going to assume the number 1 spot on the outside lane. It was Mr. Josh Hanner who won back in Season 5. The Superspeedway 500 did not return until Season 8, where we saw Shane McKeechee win it. Rodney Watford, your winner from Season 9. Jason Altman's won in Season 10. And Corey Henry, your winner from the Season 11. Just technically 2 seasons ago, so it is the 6th running of this race, and if you're somebody who has yet to beat a victory lane in this event, the stats are in your favor at the moment. A little bit of action that time off of turn number 2, the 22 and the 21, mixing it up a little bit at 202 miles an hour.
Yeah, they certainly are at this time, of course, but it's really filtering out now. We've only got 3 cars on the outside lane, so it's starting to really quiet down here, Evan.
Well, we expect there to be, at some point, a point in this race where things settle down. And again, I stand by the earlier statement that these guys are not guys who like to take these races methodically, if you will. Absolutely, there's strategy in it. And we have seen many a time in the past where you get 2-3 teammates together and they completely dictate the pace of the race. We see that strategy element. But we don't see a strategy element very often on Fridays that involves guys getting single file and taking it easy. These guys are going to be too wide at any given moment, especially the draft package on these cars and on the sim at the moment appears to really lend to some good racing. But we're a 10th of the way through a regular length race here at Daytona with 20 laps complete, but again, we have those extra 24 on top of it, so about 1/6 of the way through the Superspeedway 500. The good thing is we're starting to see guys spaced out a little bit, and when you have everybody in a big pack, the racing is that much more exciting. But also it makes things very treacherous when we come to the conversation of green flag pit stops. If there is some spacing, a better likelihood of executing through that, and that's not all that far off of the horizon. As the 82 goes high, Dan Harrington lost the car at a 2. He's up into the fence, he hangs on, but big problems.
He does just about, and nearly had a big problem there. He nearly got into that fence, but the car looks still intact right now. But so good save from him, but his heart rate will be going. That will let him filter back now. He'll want to find some nice calm air and just recover his faculties a bit from that one.
It is beat up a little bit. Again, he'll be down pit road. He has the opportunity to get that car fixed. He just needs to find a spot in line before he falls too far back, because to that concept of green flag pit stops now, as he has a little bit of damage, so it's going to hurt the speed on that car just a little bit, but I think more importantly, combined with that, losing the draft really hurt you at a place like a Daytona and a Talladega, and it's a concept that these drivers are extremely familiar with in the Superspeedway Cup Series. We go green for another 15 laps, he could be a lap down, and then you find yourself battling with the likes of Ray Sanders in 30th and Matt Quick in 31st, two other names who are running one lap down at the moment as far as battling over a lucky dog position. That's not something you want to have to worry about this early in a race.
No, certainly not, of course. You don't want to be in that sort of spot because you might not get a cautional race. It's not likely, but it's entirely possible. So these guys are going to really have to focus on wanting to be in a good spot here. Get people to come with you. Of course, there are a lot of teammates, but there are a lot of independent drivers here. So they need to have made some friends beforehand and just arrange with people. Hey, are we going to go here, or we'll go together here?
Single file inside of the top 5, I think, for the first time tonight. There's only 2 guys on the outside of the racetrack. One of them we were talking about earlier on, Mr. Mark Jorgensen Jr. I guarantee that when he wants to come back up front, he will. And despite the fact that nobody else wants to really make the move topside, he found himself a dancing partner in Glenn Hedrick, and they've gone to the outside of the racetrack. They're attracting some attention, though. Brandon Chaburko going to make the transition from the bottom lane to the top. He'll come back down and just kind of stalls out the little bit of a run that number 21 machine had.
Yeah, it certainly has, and he wants to make sure he's just controlling the cars around him, and this is something you'll see the driver of Brandon Chaburko do quite a lot here, Evan, is he does like to dictate how things are going around him for other drivers, so you'll see him make moves like that. You'll see him kill a run on the outside, even if he isn't perhaps at the front himself. You'll see him just dictating who gets an opportunity, because cars on his outside, that means he can't make a move, so he wants to be in a good spot here.
That move that we saw by Chaburko, kind of faking coming up to the racetrack and then making a move back down, and would somehow landed himself in front of, looks like the 76 of Scott Warren, who ran in 5th the last time by, is all a part of the gamesmanship. I had noted earlier on when we were talking about the battle for second. Right now, P2 is the 94 Frank Basilia. There's a good chance that if this 21 gets up next to the 2 behind him, Frank's going to step at a line, go to the outside, and take that momentum away. That's the constant struggle that guys on the outside of the racetrack find themselves dealing with, is everybody doesn't want to make a move, but as soon as you get some momentum, though, they're going to jump all over that bandwagon and try to take it from you. Outside continues to creep forward. They're not pushing as much as they were. You see the gap between the 21 and the 88. It spaced them out by about a car length and a half, so they're not necessarily hustling. Cars down pit road, though, for the first time tonight. 76 of Scott Warren, not even close.
No, that was quite a extreme move there, as a lot of cars came. I think it surprised him perhaps at that stage, as trying to get a replay of what happened there, but Scott Warren completely messing that one up.
Just locked up, and I think he just got on the brakes a little bit late. You take a second look at the replay, got into the cone. That's going to be a penalty, no doubt. It looked like everybody else, Rachel, kind of had the right idea, like they were talking about, okay, let's pit at lap 27. They all jumped down, and I don't think, based on what we saw, he was a part of that conversation, because he moved down late and just wasn't able to slow it up in time. A little bit of a late move cost him. He wasn't the only one out in the grass, though. He was one of 3 drivers that actually missed the entry to pit road. Josh Hanners, number 2, was also one of them.
Dwayne Cooper as well took a lot of grass. In fact, he mowed that infield lawn. Not the best pit stop for him. He actually will have to come back down pit lane to serve a penalty there, as he entered unsafely for that moment, as actually Josh Hanna had a bit of a contact as he was coming back onto the track to head to his pit box, or driver had to take avoiding action here. But the first one we saw there, of course, was Scott Warren. He had to react to the fact the cars in front of him were slowing down more than he expected, so he had to go wider, and that carried him onto that grass. So not ideal, this first green flag pit stop. It is actually their first of the season, because we did not have any in the dual races, so this is their first green flag pit stop in a while, I'm guessing, and people might be a bit rusty.
More drivers down pit road this time. Glenn Hedrick, your race leader, coming down to the pit lane. Andrew Berger, Ramon Evans going to come down pit road. So 3 drivers in this time from 1, 2, and 3 on the racetrack. But really the bulk of the guys came down with that one big pack. Now, at any track but a plate track, will relate the difference between pitting 1 lap sooner or later up to a tire advantage. Do you want to get the fresh rubber sooner, or do you want to wait a little bit, have the better tires longer into the run? But here, it's all about coming down with friends, because you need to leave pit road with a group of cars to get a good draft off of the pit lane. Hendrick's service is going to be complete. He'll leave pit road with Dan Harrington. Looks like Jared Haggerty is going to exit pit lane relatively close to Andrew Berger's 24, but I'm not sure if these guys are tight enough to be able to get enough speed to counteract the guys that have already come down to the pit lane, Rachel, been out on track for 2 laps, that have already gotten themselves back formed up at a line, because that's about a 10-mile-an-hour difference at times.
Yeah, that certainly is. And of course, once you're really up to speed with the draft, it's more than just being at the top speed of the car. So you're talking, yeah, you're 10, 15 miles an hour difference there, especially when you're in a big pack, you get to 15 miles an hour, you'll get overhauled. So you want to be pitting in that, I think, first or second group is really when you want to be down pit road. Any later than that, and you really are starting to lose a lot of time.
The group with the 87 array right now in control of this field. Brandon Cruz Montsevice just off of the back bumper. He runs second in that train. The 94 of Frank Basilia is there as well, and just this time by, taking the race lead away from Glenn Hedrick. Hedrick led that time by, but you see the 21 machine again talking about coming up with help. He's a little bit slower running by himself. At 191 miles an hour is good for a single car run. Again, I mentioned that the Drive for Autism pole speed for Mark Jorgensen tonight was 189 miles an hour, but in the draft, 199 and now 200 miles an hour for those top 3. But again, despite the fact that we did see a lot of guys come down, Rachel, you might assume that everybody would be in a big pack. That pack is there. It's a single file line, about 6th on back, but it was really a messy trip down to the pit lane, and I think that because those 3 who ended up breaking away, Rittenauer, Montsevice, and Basilia, were able to execute their stops cleanly and weren't part of all that chaos, they're the real big winners in this as they get propelled to the race lead.
That is one of those things you really want to think about here, Evan, is if you come down to that first group, there is the opportunity to avoid a lot of carnage. If you've got a pre-planned group you're going to come with, you know you're going to be there early, you're doing it before people expect it, perhaps, and especially with a gap towards the front, it means you can just get in and get off, get cleanly, and you get your stop done. However, there is a risk of losing potentially a lap or nearly a lap, which means that should we have a caution coming out when we've got our other cars pitting, like we nearly had one there, of course, with cars in the grass, that could have easily resulted in a yellow flag, and that can put you a lap down early on. So it's a really tough decision to make, but sometimes early, it just means there'll be less cars perhaps coming onto pit road at once, so that can actually be a lot safer, a lot easier to do, and you get on and off, in and out of your box much faster.
So we take a look at some of the strategy that may be a part of this race, that again, you don't see it often at places like Daytona and Talladega, but we have seen races in the past go green non-stop, and especially when you get over that big first hurdle of that first cycle of green flag pit stops, the likelihood of that goes up. But we saw your race leaders first come down to the pit lane at the completion of lap number 27. So you think over the course of this race, if they're to go that same distance, they would then pit at about lap number 54 the next time down pit road. They would then pit at lap number 81. That would put them, if they continue to go at that, they'd be back down pit road at lap 108. That is a little bit tight as far as maybe trying to get an extra 3 or 4 laps on each run to bridge this into what could be a 3-stop race. So if that is the max these guys can go on fuel, and because everybody came down in about a 3 or 4 lap window, I think that might be, it looks like we may be in store for a 4-stop race.
Yeah, certainly looking that way. I'm not entirely sure if we've got limited fuel here again, Evan. Of course, we did for the dual race, still limited to 70%. In fact, they are here now, so we're definitely looking at a 4-stop race.
Mentioned some of the guys who got some damage earlier on in this one, noted that they could get that fixed because, as well as some of the league specific rules, as you see some side-by-side that includes that 70% fuel cell, these guys do have one quick repair in the back pocket. Luckily, nobody's had to use that yet. Those guys that were running away up front, they've been caught, but it's a little bit of a betrayal on the point of Frank Basilia, because he jumped that line, got up in front of the one of Chris Bassini. He'll go to the race lead this time down the Daytona Superstretch, drops to the inside to quarter number 3.
Yeah, so it does. This is what he wanted in this race right now, so he's going to have to get controlling in this middle stage here. It's going to be a lot more running, just quiet on-track time for him, so just focus on getting clean air, and you don't want to be out front too often as well, because it means you are burning more fuel. When you're back in that draft, you're lifting off, Evan. That means you can save fuel behind leader. And having the option to go a couple more laps, especially if we get a caution around a pit cycle, that can save your race.
Now we're back kind of where we were 10 laps into this race, and that is one well-established lead, pack positions 1 through 10. Frank Basilia, driver just behind your race leader Piscini. You've also got Derek Walker, Ray Rittenauer, Josh Ball up there, Brandon Monsivice, Glenn Hedrick, Brandon Chaburko, Rodney Wofford, and Scott Warren. The next driver behind P10 Scott Warren, who was only 0.4 of a second off of the top spot, is Andrew Berger, 4.9 seconds off of the top spot. Those top 10 in a completely different zip code.
Yeah, they certainly are right now, and this is the advantage of that group pitting together sort of thing. So these guys, of course, have got that track position they wanted, and they've got some time to themselves here. This lets them focus on getting the race. They get to filter themselves out, run single file, a lot less stress when you're going for a large number of laps here. So we'll see them just running now, and that's really what they want. They've got a good lot of space here. They're going to be hoping this one goes green.
You see one more driver going to trickle back on the outside of the racetrack as the race leader slot on by. That is the double O machine on the racetrack right now of Dwayne Cooper. Dwayne Cooper just now losing his lead lap status, would be the current lucky dog if we were to see a caution flag come out. 36 laps going to be complete this time by, and minus a little bit of contact here or there, nothing major up front. We've seen a couple of guys swapping out paint. This has been a really good opening so far to this Superspeedway 500. We've seen multiple different winners, and you know, a lot of the time, Rachel, I guess you'll see a lot of guys go plus minus, and that is guys, gaining spots from where they started, losing spots from where they started. Oftentimes, in all honesty, we'll see guys be plus 15 and plus 20 positions because the guys in front of them have wrecked out. That's not the case, as you see that 21 of Hendrick make a move to the inside the last time by. Chris Piscini was P1, Frank Basili was P2, Josh Ball was P3, and Derek Walker was P4. They all started 20th, 18th, 24th, and 15th respectively. So these guys have really been working it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you saw those guys make those moves, Evan, very early on. They did that in the opening laps, which is when you have to do it. If you want to make a move, because it does spread out here, especially if we don't get many cautions, you have to get the moves done early. You have to make it happen, and they did, and they got up front.
21 kind of broke up that group. He now puts himself into the middle. Only 3 drivers just started inside of the top 10 in this race. Right inside of the top 10 as they run on the racetrack right now. Let's see if that 21 maybe makes a move to the outside. He's got a push for the 48 of Josh Ball up the inside of the racetrack. Thought he might have jumped high to get on the front bumper of the 94. Doesn't make the move yet, and he'll leave a side-by-side battle with third behind Tim. It's like the 48's probably going to win this on the inside. Unless that 94 can get some help, the cavalry's coming. Derek Walker not going to get there in time, and we single file things back out.
Yeah, we certainly do, and this is that calm running we talked about. This is them just getting in line. They're going to plot and plan. If they have any further moves, you'll see a group of cars might have a look, or they might just sit in there and cool those engines, of course. Staying in this draft, especially up tight, could really heat these cars up. They need to make sure that does not happen. Pushing a lot harder at the moment, especially with this current build. It does mean that these guys really have to work together to get hooked up. Especially when you're broken up into 2s and 3s. It's the forward car that actually has to lift to get on the bumper of the car behind them, which sounds completely counterintuitive, but doing so, it gets you through this cushion of air between the two cars we're starting to see at the moment with this current package. And that allows those guys just to get hooked up. Once you're hooked up, you actually are going faster, even though the car leading is lifting.
You see these guys try to find some help, and that's why it is so critical, and especially when we get to some unique situations, and the chase being re-implemented is going to be something that definitely lends us to that. We saw something occur a couple of seasons ago where we were at the final race on the regular season. There were 3 team drivers. 2 of them were qualified for the chase. 1 of them was not. He needed a win and nothing less to get himself in. So what did the 2 guys that were locked in do? Get on his bumper. The other protected the outside lane of the racetrack, and they completely took over control. So yes, every time we come to a plate track, it is a wild card race. It is always unpredictable, but these things aren't impossible to figure out.
Oh, absolutely not. A team could really change the dynamic on one of these tracks, especially a bigger team. And we have some big teams here like DHI, of course. And, well, if you have that organization, which these guys do, you can really get this thing flowing in your direction. You can control the pace of the race. And you can get someone up front if you want to, and it is entirely possible.
Your race leader, Chris Passini, has 2 career Superspeedway Cup Series wins. His last came back here in Daytona about 5 months ago. He's looking for his 3rd career win. He's your race leader at lap number 42 of 124. In this, the Superspeedway 500, as the Superspeedway Cup Series returns for 2017. We are clean and green still for the drop of the green flag. We'll take this quick opportunity to step aside. We'll be back to Daytona Beach in a moment. Pit stops just around the corner. You're watching the 2017 Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why aren't you working on the time model? Nothing?
Back live from the Daytona International Speedway. Still in control is Chris Passini. 47 laps into the works and in a regular race. We'll be just about to give you your iRacing Speedway race break. A little bit further to go tonight when we get to lap number 50. Still going to be sitting at that moment with 74 laps to go. So not quite at the halfway point we're expecting, based on when we saw guys come down to the pit lane for the first time between laps 27 and 29. Pit stops around lap 55. That would imply that it's probably going to be a 4-stop race if this race continues to stay green. And you would think that as we get closer and closer to pit stops, they'd be taking it easier, but the 22 and the 21 go at it. Hendrick and Chubert go back and forth.
Oh, some big moves up at front there, of course, Evan, but these guys are like you say, you expect them to be quite calm here, but this is pushing really, really hard at this stage. And Josh Ball is up there. He's getting involved here as well. But these are all guys we normally see up here at the front, and it is really cool to see this racing at this stage. Yeah, we're nearly 47 laps into this motor race, and they are still racing hard here. 94 and the 21 going up to the high side there. Going to try and make something happen. 20 looked like he was coming out to join them, but Derek Walker, he pulls back in line. And they're going to be joined by the number 7, I think it is, of 76, sorry, of Scott Warren. He's caught up to this front group, and he's going to try and go with his outside lane.
He'd like to be up where the 7 is. Ronnie Wofford making a push for the number 1 spot. He'll get up to 2nd. He's got Basili off to the bumper, but not able to get there yet. You see a car on the racetrack already coming out of pit road for what could have been a second trip down to the pit lane for service. In this race, as we've noted earlier, that these guys don't take it easy from start to end, but one would think at some point, maybe bored isn't the right word, but you would get tired of just going back and forth with each other. Well, when you saw the 22 and the 21 bounce it off each other at 198 2 laps ago, they were laughing and joking about it to each other on the radio as they were coming through the trial. Well, these guys love this kind of racing, and at times it puts them in those dicey and nail-biting situations, but it's what kind of drives them to get this stuff complete. We'll be 50 laps in the books the next time by. Bassini's done a really good job, though, of controlling the flow of this second stint.
Yeah, he really has. This has been Chris Bassini's stage right now. Of course, earlier on, it was kind of under Brandon Traberco. He had that under control. Chris Bassini now, that number 1 Pennzoil machine, is doing just that here. Although a big challenge on the outside from Rodney Wofford here. And that number 7 machine, multiple winner here, Rodney Wofford. He knows how to run Daytona. Joined there by the 94 of Frank Basili III, a past champion, of course. And Chris Bassini, yeah, he's got a good group here. Well, he's not going to be able to pull out and control this outside lane right now, but could, if he wanted to, be very close. Probably a late race move, of course, Evan, but he's in a good spot. He's just relaxing with these guys. There's no real need to get too aggressive.
There's a little bit more separation, and lap traffic is kind of playing an interesting role in this now because 11th on back is still way out of this thing. 7.7 seconds now, the gap back to Andrew Berger, who is still in that position. He's got a couple of guys with him, Paul Servant, Ramon Evans, Corey Henry, Roger Stewart, and some other guys. And then there's even a pack further back. 16th on back is almost 20 seconds off of the top spot. Sometimes guys intentionally drop that far back in a race that they're banking on having some yellows in so they can kind of remove themselves from the drama early. Therefore, if an incident happens, they're going to be fine and going to be able to continue on, and, you know, in theory, they get that late race caution, jump up and get in and try to make a move. But as you take a look at a couple of these guys spread throughout the field, there are some lap traffic drivers working with some of these guys. P10 right now is Ray Rittenauer in the 87. He's got the 28th place driver behind him, hanging on to the draft at the moment, and is kind of helping him keep touch with the lead pack because that last driver, Rachel, in a lot of cars is always in a tough spot to be able to maintain the draft, and the 87 is enjoying the help from the 26 right now.
Yeah, he certainly is. It's very big use to him, of course. And well, we had some of these drivers, they have gone a lap down already, mostly because of these bad pit stops. We saw some cars just lose the lap because of speed, but a lot of these guys have made some mistakes on pit road, and that can cost you everything here.
Now, in fact, we do go single file for the guys up front. Passini, Ball, Walker, Wofford, and Basilia in a single file line inside of the top 5. Again, the easy answer is go single file. You're going to be faster as one group, and that can really apply to the guys, 11th on the back. You can say go single file and try to pick up time. You could also say that if you can lose 8 seconds, you could make up 8 seconds. I can promise you it's a lot more difficult to make up that time and a gap to the guys up front. But again, every time we go through green flag pit stops, it's something that seems so basic, but you don't get a lot of practice of it, and here they come again. Lap 53, Passini down to the pit lane, Rodney Wofford to the edge of pit road. Just got it checked up in time, and a handful of guys are down.
Yeah, good entry pit road by those three. Very well organised stop, of course. Something probably organised beforehand. This three, or maybe communicated in the races. Slightly worse stop up front there, actually, for Rodney Wofford. He had a slightly interesting one. The 20 of Derek Walker also sideways into his pit box. That's going to make leaving a little bit more difficult, but they have got cars around them, so they'll be able to leave pit road with other cars. That's very important to have friends coming off pit road. And they're all DHI teammates. That is exactly what we're seeing here. So this is a planned stop, Evan. These guys plan to do this, and they're doing it. Perfect execution.
Second group going to come in this time. Josh Ball going to lead them down. A little bit tight to the line. Brandon Chaburko down. Frank Basilia, Glenn Hedrick, Scott Warren, Brandon Bonsevice, Ray Rittenauer, and Daniel Holloway going to come down this time. And again, these guys coming down at lap 54, exactly how we expected. So those team cars who we saw pit that one lap earlier, Rachel, might have said, okay, they went 27, they're probably going to go 27 again. Let's outpit them by one stop, and we'll see if that works out for them as everybody completes their service and gets back out on track. Looks like a lot of guys taking tires.
Absolutely, and tires are very important. With the way this car behaves at the moment, you really through the tires here at Daytona. So if you want to stay down on that bottom lane, which if you're ring too wide, you're going to have to, and if you want to keep the throttling, I should say, you need to take tires. It does burn through them. Running on that second lane, you can probably take tires every other stop, and you can get away with that. But if you're going to run on that bottom line, it does start to abrade on those tires a lot more. The heat builds up and you do lose grip, so you're going to have to start lifting. And that can really give the outside line a real advantage.
We saw a group of 2 or 3 drivers win the cycle back off of the pit lane the last time it happened. We'll see how this one shakes out because Josh Ball, who came down as the leader in that second pack, is in control, but a caution flag is out. We mentioned that the trips down to the pit lane can be some treacherous times, and this may have even come from contact down onto the pit lane. We'll try to find a number on it, but there were a lot of guys who were all over the place on pit road, but it does sound like this one is with the 24 Vanju Burger on the racetrack. First yellow on the night, and he went around all by himself down on that flat banking on the inside of the racetrack on the apron, Rachel.
Yeah, not a good position for him to be in, unfortunately. And that was one of our cars that's running, I think, in our bottom end of our field, but just a bit of a solo mistake there. And I think if I look back at the video footage, that was coming off pit road. So he tried to go too fast on the, I believe he's the defending champion, actually. But this was trying to accelerate a little too fast, Evan, on that pit road exit, trying to get the speed up. He catches it just a little bit of looseness, and round he goes. So not ideal.
Yeah, Andrew Berger, your season 13 champion, took it by 9 points over Rodney Watford. Spinning out, coming out of the pit lane was not the way that he planned on beginning his championship defense, but it just looped around on him, and you go on board with it, but he just lost control of it. The back end slid away, and it began to drift up and up and up, and even by getting onto the bank, he wasn't able to bring it back in, and that brings us under caution for the first time tonight. This caution coming at an interesting point because not everybody had completed service. Josh Ball, the highest driver on track who has pitted. I don't think Joel Wood's 79, though, has come down to the pit lane. No, he did. The 79 was down pit road. It may have been when the yellow came out, and he decided to only go with fuel only. In fact, he may not have actually stopped in the box, and now he's off in the grass. So problems for the 79 of Joel Wood. It looked like he was going to be the race leader and then made contact under caution.
You're trying to work out what's happened here. We've got a lot of cars stopping, actually, here on the racetrack as things getting a little bit interesting here at this stage, Evan. As, looking further up our field, that is big contact on the racetrack. That's not what you want to have happen at this stage. And that is a very important car involved because that's the 88, I think, that's up there.
There was the 18 coming up the bottom. Gary Champion was in 23rd. And I'm not sure why he was coming up the bottom, but the 79, the race leader, went down and they made contact and it spun those guys out in front of the field. And that's going to damage a lot of fast cars. Considering how well we've seen the first 54 laps of this race go green, it's an unfortunate accident.
Oh, absolutely, Evan, right now. And that's a strange one because, the 79 just drifts down. He hits that number 18 car. And, that's the 48 involved as well. The 76, 22. This is race changing, and I think people might be a little bit less impressed.
It could have been worse in the fact that these guys do have a quick repair to go back on, but again, that's not any sort of contact that you want to see, and it's a tough break again. Gary Champion was the guy coming up the inside. A lot of guys have been waved around this yellow. His name is not one of them, so I had just noted before that the caution coming out in the middle of the cycle, the pit stops, Rachel, kind of made it weird where we did have a lot of lead lap guys mixed up with lap cars, and I think it was really just a brief moment in concentration that led to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or it could have been, as we said, screen going out, which should be a very obvious one. At which point he couldn't see where he was going. So it would be one of those unfortunate situations where this thing will happen. Sometimes jamming on the brakes can be even more problematic. So you go, all you can say is hope you keep it in a straight line, warn people it's happening, and I think it's just one of those accidents that just happen sometimes.
One of those scenarios is just going to happen to put Brandon Cruzmont's device to the race lead. We'll be just about at the halfway point when we go back, Reed, about 6 or so laps away from that at the moment. But as we get set to get this race back away, Mont's device, Basilia, Chaburko, Ball, and Hendrick are your new top 5.
Yeah, they certainly are, and this one does change things up a little bit here for us, of course, as we've got Monsivais, we've got Basilia the third, we've got Chaburko, Josh Ball, and Glenn Hedrick, as you just mentioned, Evan. So this one's going to be quite telling to see what happens here. But as it stands, it's going to be a tricky one, as 54 blown up as well, we've just heard. Brandon Cruz-Monsalves has just gone from the lead, Evan.
So that's 2 incidents in a row now. Under the caution after going 55 laps or 54 laps of green flag racing without incident, 2 race leaders under yellow now have run into problems.
Yeah, this is the cursed race, I think, because we thought we were going to have a really green race here, and suddenly problems everywhere.
Still a lot of guys on track. 24 drivers going to be on the lead lap as this one gets back away. Dan Harrington's not going to apologize. And in fact, he, although being scored as your race leader, is in fact no longer with the race leader. So he's being scored as the driver in first. He was given a wave around, and I think he might have been given one too many wave bys, because Dan Harrington is scored as the race leader on lap 59. Your guys behind the pace car are on lap 59, but they're in turn 2. So I think there's also, and again, this is the kind of thing that happens, Rachel, when that yellow comes out right in the middle of guys coming down pit road and getting back out and getting up to speed, and especially because a lot of guys on pit road, half of them could be on one side of the start-finish line, half of them could be on the other side. So Dan Harrington was waved around to go to the race lead. He has come down pit road and going back out, so the 82 is a lap ahead of everybody else. So they're going to have to try to figure out how to relegate this scoring problem.
Yeah, they're going to be able to sort this one out now. We're delaying the green flag, we're hearing, so they are delaying the green flag. They're going to hold him, let the field pass, I'm guessing, and they'll sort this one out nice and easy.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be coming down to the pit lane because they had recognized that, and then they were going to hold him there for the restart. But the issue for the 82 machine is that he's a lap ahead. So what's going to happen is I believe the pace car is still going to duck off and away, but they will hold the green flag to come out one more time around. I believe that is going to happen because the issue is if you toss the pace car back down pit road, or actually leave the pace car back out onto the racetrack, it's not going to relegate the issue because under the caution, iRacing handles who goes where and goes to what positions, and what that would do is it would automatically send him back around, and it would keep
they're
Dan
racing.
Harrington in
Sorry,
his
they
position.
are racing already. So the
Yeah, they're
field
going.
keep back green.
So we were told that they were going to hold it, but the green flag is out and in the air. So Dan Harrington, your race leader, 1 minute and 14 seconds ahead of everybody. Technically behind the lead pack. It's the battle for second. Involves Frank Basilia off in 1 and 2.
Yeah, apparently it's the battle for second, but your leader's on his own, actually. Dan Harrington behind your field as caution flies again. They're going to throw this one now. Manual caution's been thrown by race control. They're going to sort this field out as we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, I believe the instruction was that they were going to let the pace car come down and they were going to figure it out anyways, but I don't think that memo necessarily got to everybody, and now we will actually take the yellow flag out, and what will happen is they'll just give Dan Harrington a black flag. He'll drop back and he'll be in an interesting spot, but he will get on the proper position. Frank Basilia, I believe, is going to be the rightful race leader. We're just shy of the halfway point in the Superspeedway 500, and as they work on getting the scoring relegated after that last yellow, we'll take this opportunity to step aside and take a yellow flag of our own. You're watching LSRTV's continuing coverage of the Superspeedway Cup Series Season 14 Championship at LSRTV and iRacing Live, back to Daytona Beach when we return.
More than impressive, I have to say. I mean, the track is identical to the real track. I was blown away how realistic it is. Every little bump, every little spray paint, everything is exactly like you were there at the track. It was a great experience. This is a warm-up lap now. Tires to get warmed up. The engine. Breathe a little bit here when you go through that little bump there. And then it's flat pretty much all the way through here, just about. Hard braking. This is the slowest part of the track. And then I've done, I did many races in Formula 3, Formula 2. And then I did the very last race they did there in Group C in 1983 in the 956 Porsche. That's when Beloff got the lap record at the 6:11. I think I was second on the grid with the 6:14 or something, which was, those cars were awesome around there, of course, like any car is, that speed. And this is the corner of all corners here, the Schwedenkreuz. Flat all the way into it. And then trail brake all the way into the apex here. And hard at it again to get good speed down the hill here. Mega fast down this hill here. Just jump from one apex to the next. Gotta be super precise here. It's almost exactly like the real thing. So it is certainly realistic enough to get past the very, a lot of the initial hurdles you have when you try to learn to drive a race car. So I think it's an excellent tool to learn how to race for sure, or learn to drive a car on a racetrack.
So obviously you guys have come from the virtual world to reality. What do you think about a sim racer coming in the real world? What were your expectations coming in?
Coming from iRacing, a computer program basically down here to a real world scenario where you got all these guys with all these years and years and years and years of experience that are also using iRacing as a tool to come out and run against those guys and beat them and finish ahead of them and show them, there's a thing or two you might be missing is fantastic. That's a skill that I know I don't have, and I can appreciate it because I'm terrible at iRacing.
Glenn was able to come into the team. We did a lot of preseason testing, actually a full season's worth of testing before we even started the season. And he came in, there was a lot of sectors that he was the fastest guy out of our team. And Sparky and I are looking at data, trying to catch up to him through some turns. And of course, some places Sparky will be the fastest or I'll be the fastest, and Glenn is able to learn from, what we're doing and vice versa. So it was excellent to see his pace right off of the bat, and speed was never a worry. It's about qualifying well. Qualifying is very difficult, and pretty important in this series. And so is, being able to make effective passes without contact. It's very difficult to pass in these cars, so, it's not easy being here.
I think the level of ultra competitiveness in here, where when normally when you make a pass, you're making a pass with two cars involved. But if we're making a pass in this series, you have to remember there's 5 cars waiting behind you. If you mess up that pass, they're going by you.
Yeah, it's like sharks.
Yeah, you're surrounded by sharks. But no, it's been, I've been very surprised and very pleased with it. And obviously I have the 2 champions I'm sitting between. John actually statistically is the most successful MX-5 Cup driver in the world. He owns every record that you would want, none of the bad records.
Maybe some of them, I don't know.
Maybe some of those. And Sparky's one of the quickest guys in the paddock, and obviously the champion now. So I couldn't have picked a better team to be with 6 Sideways. I'm looking at what everybody in the paddock calls gold. They will pay to look at John and Sparky's data, and I get full access to it. And I get to see where I'm doing well and see where I can improve. And I've been really pleased with my progress.
Lights go out on top of the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car, and we are in proper order for the restart. Going to be 65 laps complete. We are now on the downhill side of things in the Superspeedway 500. In control of the field, and rightfully so, Mr. Frank Basilia, alongside Brandon Jaburko, Paul Servant, Josh Vickery, Roger Stewart, your top 5 as we come to the restart. American Ethanol, green flag flies, and we're back at it.
Good clean restart here as the top group do pull away a bit better there. It's the top 10 or so cars there, Evan, getting a better jump here as the 21 lags back on the outside. The 20 car will drop back on the inside as well. Single file behind your top 10.
The only those 4 drivers at the moment inside of the top 10 on the outside of the racetrack, a big single file line. Remember all those guys who were 8 seconds back and 20 seconds back? Well, they're right back in this thing, and especially now, knowing that we basically went half of the race under green flag conditions, these guys really can't bank on this race not having any more yellows. As far as, you can't afford dropping back. You have to stay up with these guys, Chris, because we've seen it happen once. It can happen twice, and I think that means that these next 10 to 15 laps, maybe not necessarily the top 5, but keep a look at the guys around P10 and P15. I think that's where all the action's going to be, because you got a lot of guys fighting to not lose touch with the pack.
Yeah, definitely, Evan. As you mentioned, people who are 10 seconds, 20 seconds back, now right back up. It's like hitting the big reset button on this race once again. So we're going to see a lot of battling, especially through the mid-pack, as we see like our Andy Kessler, Josh Braw, Andrew Berger try to make their way up through the field and not lose that draft like they did the last time. So look for the tough racing to be back here. As we've seen up front, everybody except for maybe Josh Vickery and the 13, they're staying up top, and it's just basically single file up front.
What we have seen towards the longer ends of the runs that we've seen so far to this point, that number 22 of Brandon Jaburko, not surprisingly, accompanied by Mark Jorgensen Jr. They started 3rd and 1st in this race, respectively. They're now bringing up the chart to the outside, but that name Josh Vickery one that Chris had noted, Rachel, is one that we really haven't talked a whole lot about. The 13 of Dominic Dyball also inside of the top 10 for the first time tonight. Both those names right now plus 26 positions so far to this point.
Yeah, a lot of guys have really shuffled up the order with this restart as the things get a bit tighter now at the front of the pack. The outside line moving a bit better right now at the back of the outside line. They're going to start moving forwards. This momentum actually could shunt them forwards, so could expect to see some positions swap at the front. Look at this momentum moving forwards now, but yeah, a lot of guys have come from the back. They're now right up here. In fact, quite a lot of these guys who perhaps started a bit further back, they didn't have a great race in those dual races, but now this is where they really should be running.
22 makes a move. He gets back in between the 3 and the 88, down on that lowermost lane of the racetrack. Vickery, the 13 machine as well. Scott Warren in the 76. Some of these other guys who are just knocking on the doorstep, just breaking into the top 5, getting that little bit extra that has evaded them so far to this point. We're past the halfway point, though, from Daytona. We'll take this opportunity to take a look at your iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, and more. Look top to bottom, P1 that time by Mr. Frank Basilia, over top of Paul Servant, Josh Vickery, Brandon Jaburko, and Dominic Dyball inside of the top 5. Repulsed to Mark Jorgensen Jr. runs in 6th. Josh Hanner was 7th with Garrett Atwell 8th. Roger Stewart at 9th, and Rachel Josh Ball rounding out our top 10.
Yeah, absolutely, and currently sitting in the 11th place. That is the car of Scott Warren. Randy Weaver in 12th. Andrew Berger in 13th. Chris Bassini, Derek Walker, Corey Henry, Andy Kessler, Ramon Evans, Glenn Hedrick, and Rod Flack is your 20th place car.
Only 3 of the drivers on the lead lap. Ray Rittenauer in 21st, Daniel Holloway in 22nd, and Dwayne Cooper in 23rd. Guys 1 lap down, including 24th through 28th position. That's Dan Harrington, Dana Osborne, Shane McKeechin, Matt Quick, and Brandon Cruz Monsivice. 2 laps down, and 29th is Gary Champion. 30th position is Jared Haggerty. He's -6, and a couple of guys out of this race, 31st, 32nd, and 33rd for Joel Wood, Ray Sanders, and Larry Camp. That's a look top to bottom at your iRacing Midway Race Break, but they're wrecking up front. The 13 and the 4 into the fence in corner number 3.
Oh, and it keeps getting bigger as most of the back part of this front field are caught in this one here, Evan. This is a huge, huge incident, and we're going to have a quick look at what's happened. And it involves... Oh, it's Friday the 13th, and it involves the 13 car of Dominic Dyball.
And it involved some 3 wide that I think was definitely avoidable. Garrett Atwell with a big move, split the gap to the 22, and instead of just kind of counting his cards there and getting in lawn, there was room in the middle of the backstretch, sure, Chris, but when we got off to 3, that outside lane came back down where they were supposed to go, and there was just no room for the 4 machine, and sure, you could argue the 13 needed to give him more space, but I think that that's a move that the 4 machine definitely could have avoided putting those guys in.
Yeah, definitely. But Evan, it's a move we see a lot here at Daytona, especially going down the super stretch. You get that full head of steam coming off of turn 2, and you don't want to let up. So that's what Garrett Atwell was trying to do. And you see the replay up here with the 4. It's just a terrible wreck, guys. It's stuff that can be avoidable, but it's stuff we've come to know here at Daytona, especially going down that super stretch. And how fitting is it to involve Dominique Dyball, that 13 car here on Friday the 13th?
We've already seen some weird stuff tonight, so we'll add that on top of it. And I think seeing an accident like that on any given day at lap number 70, not all that surprising. But again, got 124 laps on the night, still a little bit further before we get to the checkered flying in this one. Not quite at that 3/4 point. Nonetheless, this caution after the confusion on the last 2 yellows is going to allow these guys, Rachel, to come down pit road for service, led by the 94.
Yeah, this should reset everyone onto a similar strategy here. And this puts us back in a 1 stop to the end territory here, Evan. So 1 further stop after this restart under caution. And these guys will be going to the end.
Looks like the 94 stays in the box much longer than some of the other guys. He'll go with 4 tires. He'll just barely beat that number 3 machine off for the pit lane behind him. But several drivers winning that race off for the pit lane. Chris, you got Josh Vickery, Roger Stewart, Josh Ball, Andrew Berger, plus all the guys that didn't come down to the pit lane. However, most people on the lead lap did elect that service was necessary.
Yeah, definitely, especially here at Daytona where, service isn't really necessary, but you always want to keep on your toes if you just want to follow the ducks here at Daytona. So definitely not a needed service, but definitely good to keep up. And like you said, you mentioned a few of these drivers staying out, which is very, very common here at Daytona. Andrew Berger in that 24 machine, we just talked about him being back in 15th place, Evan, and now he's up there right behind the pace car leading this thing.
I will want to run through that plug there at the end of our iRacing Midway Race break, and they've yet to kill it, so make sure to use it. If you don't have an iRacing subscription, our promo code PR-2016 LSRTV still works. Again, that's valid on a new iRacing membership only, and not only is iRacing going to hook you up with 13 cars and 14 tracks absolutely free with a first-time subscription, but we'll toss the NASCAR late model on top of that as well. Again, that's promo code PR-2016 LSRTV. It's still working, so make sure to punch that in, and that is valid on a new iRacing membership only. We talk about some of the upcoming races to this Superspeedway Cup Series. We'll be back on air in 1 week's time from Talladega for the first time on the year. Again, all of the races from this point out going to be going Daytona, Talladega, back and forth. 250-mile races from this point on, which means 94 laps in 1 week's time and 100 laps when we return back to Daytona in a couple of weeks. So the one thing that I'm excited, and it's not going to be coming up for 5 months, so that's not to say to not come here on Friday nights and hang out with us until we get to May, but the chase starts in May. We'll have a chase cutoff, a 3-race opening round, then we'll drop it down to 6 drivers, and 6 drivers will go for 3 races to determine a champion. The added unpredictability of a chase, Chris, I think is very fitting when we talk about how unpredictable these Superspeedway plate races are to begin with. It's pretty hard to be consistently good under this kind of a system, and yet Andrew Berger, your race leader at the moment, won his 4th series championship just last season. So he, like some of these other guys, appear to have this thing figured out.
Yeah, definitely, Evan. Being consistent is definitely one of the hard things to do here in this league and in a lot of these leagues is, being consistent. A lot of things happen between now and that championship day, so being consistent is key. Winning races is all nice and fun, but keeping up in the points and making sure you advance into the chase is all that matters here tonight.
Looking to see if the lights go out on top of the pace car this time by. If they do, it means we'll go back green with 75 laps complete. Essentially, still 49 laps at that point, Rachel, still left in this race. That's plenty of time. So, while it does feel like with 74 laps completed and behind us, and again, I keep saying it over and over, but I do think it has relevance in these guys' minds. Any other week at this point in the race, you're starting to feel like you're getting down the crunch time. The action's certainly going to continue to get ramped up, but there's still nearly 50 laps to go in this race.
Oh, there certainly is, and like I said, it's one more stop. If this goes green to the end, we have a stop about halfway in this next stint. So that means these guys have to think about that. You have to think about who they're coming with again, what's going to go on. But we think there probably will be more caution, so when will it fall? Will it fall late enough that you don't need to come back in again? Thing is, it's a pretty even split in terms of when you'd have to come. So a caution falling either in the first half would still mean you have to come into pits again. So it's really going to make things very tight.
Something also is that with those yellows could especially mess up the strategy, because right now things are rather orderly. Very rarely do that, but you can go about 27 laps.
Going to happen throughout these last few laps, especially here at a track like Daytona. I want to point something out to you guys real quick. We always mention it's not about where you start, it's where you finish, and the top three here for this race, 26th, 24th, and 31st, is where they started, all outside of the top 20, so definitely interesting as we get ready to go back green.
We've seen a couple of big movers. We've hopefully seen guys who started up front stay in the conversation. Pole sitter Jorgensen, one of them just a little bit back in 7th position. Underneath the flag stand they come. American Ethanol green flag flies are already back off to turn number 1. Good jump by the 4 cars working on the outside of the racetrack. It's Josh Ball, Frank Basilia, the 2-hander, and the 7er on the Wofford. The 48 wasting no time to duck down to the bottom.
On the outside wall, actually it's number 10 at the moment. Rod flag in the outside fence there, I think, Kevin. And he could be going to the back and losing time.
Second time we've seen him up there. We saw him way up there in the same spot of the racetrack turn 2 earlier on in this race as well, dropping back, and we thought that at that point it might have been a strategical move to get out of the Hornet's nest, but it's not the time of the race. You want to be going backwards.
Definitely not, Evan. Speaking of going backwards, we already had just a little bit of a split in the field. That split led by the 98 of Andy Kessler. Now looking to join them is the 22 of Brandon Scherberko. So already a split in the field, and we've only done 1 lap here today. So definitely not the start that these guys want, battling too wide and just losing the pack.
94 get a pinch down, and we'll see if one of our defending champions, Basilia, is going to be able to get himself off to a good running start to get this season back underway. He's got the 2 off for the back bumper, the 7 again. There's still plenty of help. Now, though, despite the fact that, sure, your race leader's plus 23, that Josh Vickery, somebody who we really haven't talked a lot about tonight, is plus 24. Making up positions is not impossible, but late in this race, we're going to start to see, not that we've seen a lot of single file Rachel, but these guys are going to be side by side a lot more, especially when you look at trends, and the trends say that there's a lot more yellows in the final quarter of a race than any other portion. A lot of race starts, a lot of side by side action. It's going to be increasingly difficult for people to make up positions in bulk, and you might get stuck. If you're a guy like that 3 of Paul Servant, not that you can really complain about running 7th at the moment, but he can't go anywhere right now. There's cars in front of him, there's cars to his right-hand side. He has to wait for an opportunity to present itself to him.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's not a great spot to be in, but at the same time, it's not a terrible one. It puts you in a good setup for later on. But you are in a bad spot now because you're in the back of this lead group, which means if something happens to our leaders, and again, statistically, if we're going to have a problem now, it's going to be people making moves for the lead of this race, going for that win. So you are in a good spot, but at the same time, it's a risky spot because you're really in this action. So got to keep your eyes open here.
This is also the point where you kind of wait for something to happen. We've seen some accidents here and there, but the big one is yet to elude us, that if there was anything that would cap off of Friday the 13th, it would be some junk, and these guys are really tightly packed in last time by. The top 13 within 1 second of each other, and you just see the top 10 all side by side as they run this time through quarters number 3 and 4. Still the 94 leading the top side charge, and still the 48 leading the bottom charge.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing that's going to be interesting to me, guys, is how long will this outside line, shape up? We've had a lot of racing, just hit lap 80, but still a lot of racing left to go. We've mentioned it maybe once or twice tonight. The engine power, you can't really afford to push too much, and you don't want to use up all your stuff, guys. You want to save that towards the end. You see the 2 of Josh Hanner and 94 of Frank Busilia up there pushing, but you see a little bit of a disconnect between them, and now you see them disconnect from each other a little bit as the 20 is dropping back through the pack, going 3 wide with most people. But you gotta save that engine. You can't afford to lose too much power, especially with one stop still to go here tonight.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is a lot of the moves, carefree again is not the right word, but these guys can swap out positions and go side by side and do everything that they did at lap 10 that they're going to do now, Rachel. And to some point, it doesn't have consequences, because that's not necessarily going to be the move that wins or loses you this race. Again, you want to lead right now, sure. Bottom line is you're going to have to execute what could be a green flag trip down to the pit lane, if not a caution flag service, and then a restart if you want to be in a position. So we see all this action, and ironically enough, it's the final 10 laps which has the least amount of passes, because then everybody freezes, and they know that if I make the right move now, I could win it, but if I make the wrong move, I could lose it. So you're going to start to see, funny enough, these guys get a little bit more methodical as that lap to go counter starts to continue to wind down.
Yeah, they certainly are, and we've seen those test moves made early on. That's what the erratic driving was. These guys were doing their homework. They were trying to make those moves early, see what can happen. So they know now, when they don't feel it's the right time, they can go and they can make it work that very first time they try it. That is so important for these guys. They have to know, okay, if I pull out now, this will happen, followed by this, and I can do this. And as they're starting to just get a little bit filtered out the front, it's still in their minds. They know what they've got to do now. It's waiting for that golden moment.
2 drivers on the inside lead the way, and that benefit of leading the outside helped out for Basilia. He's been able to get in front of the 48 of Josh Ball, and it's a lot of these guys, a lot of the old school names, the guys that have been a part of this Super Speedway Cup Series for so long, that have been running so good, somewhat fittingly so far in tonight's Super Speedway 500. As that outside starts to fall further and further back, you might get concerned. I'm not, because sometimes we can see somebody in a position that Josh Hanner's in at the moment, Chris, be side by side for second, but get stuck there. It kind of goes back to Rachel was talking about earlier about how sometimes you got to lift to get the draft going and to get hooked up. Seems counterintuitive. Sometimes the guys on the outside have to drop back a little bit before they can get some momentum and do something. So I'm not feeling all too nervous about for the 2 and the 7 and company at the moment. The one thing that they do have to watch, and it's been something we've been talking about all night, is that once they get that run, you can't let that 24 or the 48 jump up in front of you.
Yeah, definitely, and that's all about playing into my next point here, Evan. Finding where your friends are at, especially with the laps winding down like they are now. You got to find where your friends at. It was nice towards the front to have, your Andrew Bergers and your Frank Busilias, push up through the field and do all that. But, who's really going to stick with you towards the end and help you propel to the front and ultimately make their position better as well? So you're going to see the 2 of Josh Hanner and the 7 of Rodney Wolford, get together and start pushing, try to make their way up towards the front. But that's definitely key here at Daytona, is finding those friends and sticking with them through the race.
The 7, the driver off for the back bumper by the 2, has some help. That 3rd driver in line is Mark Jorgensen Jr. He, your pole sitter. Only him and Josh Hanner, guys who started inside of the top 10 that still run inside of the top 10 to this point. In fact, there's only 5 drivers who start in top 10 that run inside of the top 20 as they go right now. Again, at some point, you might have to consider forcing the 3rd lane. You see some of the guys a little bit further back. Chris Pasini made a move to the top. Derek Walker went bottom to top. So did Garrett Atwell. These guys are starting to realize that they better get going, or they might get stuck back here as Josh Ball steps out of line and puts up a challenge for the race lead.
Yeah, it's a good move on the outside there by Josh Ball in that 48 red vest. Lowe's Chevrolet. Going to go up to the high side. Not going to be clear to pull down. He'll have to be careful. Nearly getting inside there. Frank Busili the 3rd in his machine. As the 2 of Josh Hanner pushing him from behind. That was very nearly a close one, but now is the sort of time where you will cancel those friendships. But he's going to save it. They're going to put them both in line, and that was a beautiful pass.
Still running 25 cars on the lead lap. Main focus is at the top 13, but an issue happens outside of those top 13. Caution flag is out, and it is problems for Chef Andy's lobster roll machine. He's into the outside fence on the back straightaway, and he had some help. And again, what can only be described as an avoidable incident. He was working with Dana Osborne. Kessler moved down the track a little bit to the double yellow line. The 8 tried to follow him, and he just hooked him into the fence.
Yeah, definitely not the best of luck for that 98 machine of Andy Kessler here tonight. He has already, come down pit road to fix the damage once, so that's going to put him in a terrible position for the rest of the race, guys. I feel bad for him. It's just terrible things that happen here tonight, and we've seen a lot of it.
This will slow things down, and we were talking about the interesting relationship between those final 49 laps at a caution coming out, Rachel. I don't think pitting at this moment under this yellow would give these guys enough to make it to the end.
Yeah, looking at what we've got left, no, this is not close enough. This is exactly that worst-case scenario I mentioned, Evan. If guys have to come down pit road with a caution within this first stint, they will not make it to the end here. So we're still going to have one stop to the end, but it's going to be a short stop at this stage. It'll be really short. So these guys have to wonder, do I take tyres? Do I just do fuel? Do I gas and go? And when do I come?
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for these guys to pit this time and this be their final trip for tires, because if it is a green flag pit stop, just that little bit extra to get to the end. You don't want to be sitting around trying to get tires. Josh Ball, a little bit of a sideways entry into the box. He was able to get it in there nonetheless. Left side tire's going to go up. It'll be a 2-tire call for the 48, but a slow in and out might just hurt him on the exit of the pit lane. He was parked way down in stall number 24. Race off for the pit lane. Jorgensen got him.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something you'll see here a lot, Evan, is beating yourself up on pit road. It's something we see here. It's something we see here a lot, and a lot of other tracks. Hopefully that's his one and only mistake, and he gets it out of the way, and hopefully not make it during a possible green flag pit stop and basically ruin the race. So you got to be careful getting into these pit box, and especially on pit road. We've saw a few incidents getting onto the pit road here tonight. So beating yourself on pit road is still a possibility here tonight.
So as they catch back up to the pace car under what could be the last yellow of the night, we'll take this opportunity, step aside once more on our road. We'll go LSRTV nonstop, so you don't miss a moment of the action. Your race leader is no longer the 40 to Josh Ball. Mark Jorgensen Jr. may be taking control off of pit lane, but Shane McEachin stays out to go to the point. He's your race leader inside of 30 laps to go. We'll step aside, come right back to Daytona on the other side. You're watching the Superspeedway Cup Series on LSRTV and iRacing Live.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why ain't you working on the time model? Nothing?
We're back live at the Daytona International Speedway. The lights just now gone off on top of the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car. Lap number 90 going to be completed the next time around. We will be at a restart with 34 laps to go in the Superspeedway 500. We're happy that you're still with us at LSRTV and iRacing Live. Evan Pasoko topside with Rachel Whiteford and Chris Murdoch. Cisco Scarbuza just downstairs. Rachel, this race had a very quick pace to it at the start. A couple of interesting and a little bit of a strange scenario there at the halfway point kind of checked us up, and a couple of yellows from that point. Nothing, though, really out of the ordinary. I think realistically you have to expect to get some more of these situations as the race goes on, and I don't see us getting out of this one with maybe one or two more restarts still left in it.
Yeah, I gotta say, Evan, it's typical Daytona from what we expect to see here, and it's not really surprised us so far. A bit of confusion, of course, you got a couple of wrecks, some incidents happening, but yeah, this is far from done at this stage. We're expecting at least one, possibly two cautions here. Unless they get particularly creative, then we could see three or more, but these guys know what they're doing here, and it's gonna be a good one. But we'll go green this time by, and let's hope they can make it.
Restart going to come with 23 drivers on the lead lap. So, well, even on that last restart, when we thought that everybody was going to be grouped back up after at one point having nearly 20 seconds between first and 20th position, we did still see a little bit of separation. The guys up front broke away, grouped up in a pack of about 8 or 10 drivers, expecting maybe to see the guys at the back start to get a little bit more desperate as the night goes on. Again, these guys just off of the pit lane as the pace car ducks down, but I don't think we've got enough fuel on board quite yet to make it to the end. Green flag in the air with 34 to go.
Definitely not, Evan. Off to a great start. Even run, both high side and low side on the track. The 28 not gonna be able to keep up. Gonna get the run on the inside here and try to make the move on that 88 of Mark Jorgensen Jr. The 28 of Shane McEachin. We haven't talked about him a lot today, guys. He's made his way back up from to the front from a 6th place starting position. He's got that 48 machine of Josh Ball on the back, and they're looking to keep that 28 machine up front for the rest of this time.
McEachin is going to be able to maintain control of the bottom of the racetrack, but there's no help off of the bumper of the 48. That hole going to be filled by the 4 gear at Atwell, and we'll see if the 88 also decides to drop down, and he does. That almost works out better for the 28 and the 48 than it did for the guys behind it, because I know the guys on the outside were struggling with some momentum, but if they stayed topside and got a big run, that big hole in behind those two on the bottom might have been something that they would have been able to use against them and maybe pinch them down and work on the outside of the racetrack. So now we almost enter the waiting game. Single file for your race leaders off at the back straightaway. First bit of side-by-side is back at about 6th spot with the 24 of Andrew Berger, who makes the move first, or maybe the 48 and the 88 Rachel like running 2-3, and they just want to defend that spot on track for the moment. Maybe thinking that if they go to make a move and it doesn't work out, they end up dropping outside of the top 10. Maybe they want to make sure they're inside the top 5 in 2nd and 3rd, come 5 to go, and they might be content with riding where they are right now.
It certainly could be, but of course with Josh Vickery in that 97 car and the 82 machine of Dan Harrington, that pair coupled up behind Frank Masilli the 3rd and a 24 car there of Andrew Berger. These two pairs here are going to start getting some good momentum here. Look at the front, it's the 48 car. Josh Ball goes to the outside with the car of Mark Jorgensen Jr. They're going to go around the outside of that Havre in 28, leaving him on his own. Here comes the 4 as well, taking advantage, getting in there with the 24 and the 97, but that's not quite gone to plan. The 28 is fighting back, a bit of a push here on the outside, and they will clear them as teammates getting together here to start dominating this race.
Surprised they haven't gone down, though. We do see that a lot where that guy second in line drops out and gets off, and it looks like they just wanted to bring the 4 car with them. So 3 drivers, with the help of the betrayal on behalf of the 40 to Josh Ball against Shane McEachin, move up to the outside. Ball going to go to P1. Jorgensen goes to second. Atwell moves into third. And all of a sudden, Shane McEachin back in 4th position, and he's probably going to try to get right back up to those guys. And again, that's the issue. If somebody's not a teammate, nothing says that they're not just going to leave you out to dry like that 48 just did.
Yeah, definitely. But another thing we have to worry about here, Evan, is the thing that's on all of these drivers' minds, that pit strategy. We mentioned before the restart happened that these drivers would be a little bit short on fuel. So there's a couple different strategies they can play here to try to win this race. You can either short pit and be good to the end, or you can try and bank on that caution and pit during that. So it's going to be interesting to see coming up here in the next few laps to see what these drivers do, because all this battling for position is good, but it could be short-lived.
One of the big things we have to look at here, of course, Evan, is, and what Chris just said there, though, is that both these strategies work. If you pit early, whilst this group is still quite close together, that means you can get on and off pit road and stay, most importantly, on the lead lap. So if it stays green and everyone else comes down pit road, everything's fine. You're actually at an advantage. If we get a caution, you're still on the lead lap, so you get to group up anyway. So it is completely open.
Oh, some contact for the guys up front, though. A couple of guys got into the fence that time. Looks like they were able to hang on to things as they came out for the corner that time. Another thing that's not quite as specifically, when you talk about the strategy, is at any other racetrack, an intermediate racetrack, and so on and so forth, one thing that you can point out very clearly is that there is at times a better strategy than others. As long as you execute your strategy better at a plate track, sometimes it really just comes down to having more friends with you and having more people around. You can make a bad stop work as long as you have friends with you, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what we're seeing here is, everybody trying to find their friends and stay up towards the front and maybe try and stay single file to make that pit road just a little bit easier. And we're going to step aside here before this green flag pit stop come underway. We'll come back here on the other side. You're watching LSRTV and iRacing Live. We'll be back.
The straights are unbelievably long. The first time you come here, everyone tells you, you'll be flat out 6th gear for 20 seconds. First time I was here, I lifted halfway down the straight. I didn't believe that it was still going. I was waiting to brake and I was back on the power. And the Porsche curves are extremely fast and extremely narrow, so it's a tricky track, and every year I've come here, you learn something new every time.
Le Mans is so fast. Wherever you accelerate, you are over 150 miles per hour. Going there, I realized Everything you have done before was nothing.
It was more than impressive, I have to say. I mean, the track is identical to the real track. I was blown away how realistic it is. Every little bump, every little spray paint, everything is exactly like you were there at the track. It was a great experience.
This is a warm-up lap now. Tires to get warmed up. The engine. Breathe a little bit here when you go through that little bump there. And then it's flat pretty much all the way through here, just about. Hard braking. This is the slowest part of the track. And then I've done, I did many races in Formula 3, Formula 2. And then I did the very last race they did there in Group C in 1983 in the 956 Porsche. That's when Beloff got the lap record at the 6:11. I think I was second on the grid with the 6:14 or something, which was, I mean, those cars were awesome around there, of course, like any car is, that speed. And this is the corner of all corners here, the Schwerenkreuz. Flat all the way into it. And then trail brake all the way into the apex here. And then hard at it again, get good speed down the hill here. Mega fast down this hill here. Just jump from one apex to the next. Gotta be super precise here.
I mean, it's almost exactly like the real thing. So, I mean, it is certainly realistic enough to get past the very, a lot of the initial hurdles you have when you try to learn to drive a race car, So, I mean, I think it's an excellent tool to learn how to race for sure, or learn to drive a car on a racetrack.
So cool, yeah. Nate, what are you working on at the moment?
So I'm working on the animation for the game. We're working on getting pit crews fully developed, and that involves a lot of moving parts. So I'm going in and making sure that each moving part can dovetail smoothly into the next one, so that when you pull in for a pit stop, it looks like the real thing, as opposed to a bunch of jumbled pieces that suddenly stop and then go and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so cool, but why aren't you working on the time model? Nothing?
Welcome back live to Daytona International Speedway. Josh Ball is going to walk out of this with a win in the Superspeedway 500. We noted that coming into this one, we were talking about some of the past Superspeedway 500 champions and that we had yet to see somebody make 2 trips to victory lane in this event. And if you're somebody like Josh Ball and you've been around in this series for a long enough time, you're bound to win one of them in some of these strange circumstances, and he is your winner here tonight. We'll go trackside with him and chat in victory lane in just a moment. First, we are caught up with Rod Flagrod on the decision that this race will stop, and we'll count the results as of lap number 96.
Yeah, Evan, I want to thank everybody and all the viewers, especially at LSRTV. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Fortunately, we did deal with a technical issue with the iRacing simulation. It did unfortunately eliminate over 10 of our drivers from the server that we were racing in, and it's not fair to the competition that we restart the race at this point because we have completed 50% of the race. At the point of caution on lap 96 that we did declare, Josh Ball was in the lead, and so I believe that we have the 88 of Mark Jurgensen and the 4 of Garrett Atwell were in second and third. So not the best situation that we wanted. We of course wanted to run all the 124 laps tonight. I of course definitely wanted to run the entire 124 laps tonight. Did not want to finish 22nd. These situations happen. This is simulation racing. This is iRacing. Unprecedented circumstances happen. So again, I can't tell you how much disappointment there is that we didn't get to finish the entire 500 kilometers. But I do want to congratulate Josh Ball on winning a Superspeedway 500 championship.
I know that it's not necessarily the way that you guys wanted to get this season kicked off with the race ending like this, but at least up until lap number 95, we saw some exciting stuff, and I know that we're going to see an exciting season here on LSRTV going forward. We get back into the back and forth with Talladega and Daytona, that coming up next week. You guys had quite some time off over the little bit of a break. I know that you guys aren't used to having time in between seasons, so I'm sure you and all the drivers are really excited to get the season underway, and so are we.
We definitely are. Again, we have 19 more races to go. With our season, and this is our Super Bowl, and it really sucks that we get put in a position that unfortunately the technology didn't cooperate with us tonight that we all pay for, and we love iRacing, we love everything they do, but it's been tonight was very untimely and unfortunate. One of our biggest races, didn't necessarily get to go to the finish, so we'll get back at it tomorrow. Next week at Talladega, we'll do everything we can. Don't want to undershadow again what the 48 car and Josh Ball has earned tonight. They did a great job. We'll keep going.
I know that we'll talk to the drivers here in a moment, and I know that they'll thank you for making all of this possible. We'll let you take off, Rod. Anybody that you want to give a shout out to? We got you.
Nah, just drivers tonight. I shouldn't be speaking tonight. The only reason I should be speaking is if I'm in the top 3, and I just want to thank LSRTV. Just want to thank the drivers of Superspeedway Cup. Nice guys.
It's Lee Gavin and Rod Flag as this race is going to be called at lap number 96. Your race winner is going to be the driver of the number 48 machine in Josh Ball. And we had said, looking back at the past stats over this race, 5 times, 5 different winners, your luck may be in your favor if you're a driver who hadn't yet won this race, and you gotta win them some way, and Josh Ball gets the job done tonight. He's your winner from Daytona. Josh, congratulations. Interesting circumstances. I was talking with Rod and I said, for somebody like you, if you're going to be around this kind of a league for this long, you're bound to win 1 or 2 like this, and I know that you won't object to it. You guys raced for 95 laps to put yourself in that position, and you end up being the race winner tonight.
Yeah, and I'd hate to win it that way. Just sometimes, unfortunately, we, it's kind of like a rain delay in the real life. We just don't know when it's going to happen. So, no, I definitely liked winning the Daytona tonight. I got to thank the teammates out there that got us to the lead there at the end. Mark and Garrett and Andrew definitely helped on the outside as well. But yeah, overall good race. I mean, there was some stuff that happened middle race. We got caught up in under caution wreck, and that was here nor there. But we got it fixed, and glad to be back in the 48 this season, and got it done in the first race. So.
A lot of this race, we saw a lot of you and some of the staple mark drivers in this championship running up front. We kind of talked about it as we do all the time that, the Superspeedway 500 is the biggest, it is the longest race on the calendar in the overall scheme of things. Still with 13 races to go until the chase, and we're not even going to start talking about chase points because that's well and off and away. But, to a point, this race means nothing and means everything because everybody wants to get their season started off right. It was a strange night. You guys win it when it's all said and done. How are you guys looking out for this 2016 campaign for you guys?
Well, it's a little bit nicer now to kind of know that you're kind of locked in the chase, or at least at the start, at the top here. So just going to go out there and finish the best we can, help to see if we can get a couple teammates in the chase too. And then I'd like to go for the second championship. I got to try to catch down Andrew Berger there. He's like, a 37-time champion by now, so who knows? But I don't think anybody ever catch him.
He added to that with his fourth one season ago. I know that you guys would like to add one to that championship you got back in season 9. A step in the right direction, regardless of how it came tonight. You are now a Superspeedway 500 winner. I know that the objective for you guys is to be talking with us in 6 months or so at the championship race in Daytona. I have no doubt, Josh, that we'll be talking to you plenty of times over the course of the season. The sponsors, the shout-outs, who makes it happen for you?
Yeah, just glad that LSRTV is still on with us here, and just want to thank Rod for putting on the league. All the guys that helped out tonight and every night. It's great to run with Rod and Frank and Mark, Garrett. Jason Altman's. Pretty much everybody that's in my team speak. Andrew Berger. It's just a blast to come out here, and basically we just come out and have fun. Biggest thing on Friday nights is come out and have fun. Sometimes we leave upset. Sometimes we go home a victor. So tonight's one of those. And either way, we always have fun out there.
The number 48 walks out on top on this, a very interesting Friday the 13th. Josh, always a pleasure. Congratulations. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Evan.
So that's your race winner tonight from Daytona. The driver who ends up in second is the driver who won earlier tonight, the Drive for Autism Pole Award. Mark Jorgensen Jr. comes home in second when it's all said and done. And Rachel, unlike for the 48 team who they were in the race lead and they'll take it, a little bit more reservations, I would imagine, for the driver of the 88 because he was thinking about having about 30 more laps to work on it. He ends up coming home P2 in your trackside with him.
It certainly was. Thank you very much, Evan. I am stood here with Mark Jorgensen Jr. And Mark, you started on the pole for this one, of course. You had the Autism Awareness Pole Award, and you were leading much laps in this one. Unfortunately, with this delay ending the race early, you couldn't put in your plan for the end of this one. Unfortunate end, but did you have a car that could have won?
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, obviously, having issues, this, that, and the other, ended up having to call the race early. I mean, it sucks. I mean, I felt at the beginning stages of the race, I felt like, I think I made a couple blocks that, probably should have got myself turned, but, I felt like I had to do that to try to stay up there near the front and lead all the laps to be able to win it. Thought that I was doing good at the early going, and I think after that first cycle of green flag stops, I really don't know what happened with the 26 car, but we ended up getting together, and I thought my night was done after that. I was just praying for a caution, ended up going a lap down, 2 laps down, whatever, ended up getting the wave bys and started working my way up to the front, and next thing you know, I'm riding behind the 48 running P2, and a lap or so later, the race gets called. So, it sucks. I mean, I feel like by far I am the best driver in this league. When I'm put in certain situations, I feel like I can prevail and shine over other guys. And man, yes, to answer your question, I really do think that I had a car to win.
Well, it's an unfortunate end for you, but P2 is good points, of course, for the championship as it heads forwards. Of course, Talladega is our next race. How are you in Alabama?
To be honest with you, my last season, my it started to become a good track for me. I mean, I absolutely like Talladega a lot more than Daytona just because the racing room. But I mean, I'm pretty good there. I think I got a couple wins, a lot of strong finishes there, and I think you'll definitely see the 88 car up at the front. I mean, hopefully hopefully some guys will work with me and be dedicated and be good pushers. That's basically what you need to be able to win in this series, is just somebody that's committed and really good at pushing to be able to get to that top spot. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm just kind of bummed right now because I definitely felt like I could have easily won the race. I mean, it sucks because, I qualified on the pole for the biggest race of the season. I ended up winning the qualifier race, and, man, I just wanted to cap it off with a big win. And to come up second, yeah, it's good for the points. I mean, that part of it's cool, but, it sucks.
It certainly does. Anyway, thank you for joining us. That's Mark Johnson Jr., who had the Autism Awareness Pole Award for this one. Comes home in P2.
It's a good result for the 88 team. No doubt that they're going to be somebody else who will be, I'm sure, in victory lane many a times over the course of this season. Another person who I know is going to be very happy with the P3 result he got tonight is the 4, Garrett Atwell, and he's trackside with Chris.
Yes, standing down here with that 4 machine, Garrett Atwell. He started first in practice, 27th in the race, and now you cap off the night with the 3rd place podium finish. Garrett, why don't you take us through your race here tonight?
Well, it was pretty wild. Early in the race, I think I started in 30th, and I made my way up to close to the top 10, and then coming in the pits, I think I was 5th, and I missed the pit stall. I missed pit lane completely, and I ended up shooting it through the infield, and I had to go all the way around, came back in, got 2 tires, so it'd be shorter, and then I was just half a lap off until that first caution. So at that point, I thought my race was over, and then just circumstances happened. I got back up towards the front, and then I got into a wreck that could have probably been avoided, but I got back in, got my car fixed, and then got back up to the front and was working with the 48 and the 88, and we just decided to go. And when we went, we didn't know we were running for the win, and then we came down, and then a lap or 2 later, just it ended. So I mean, it was a great race. I hate to see it end like this, but I mean, I'll take the top 3.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk about the top 3 and the impact it has on points. We're still, really, really far away from the chase, but, consistency is always key, especially in this Superspeedway Cup. Definitely a great way to, start off the season. Are you excited for the rest of the season? How do you fare in this 2017 campaign?
Oh, absolutely. Like last season, I feel like I came out of nowhere, kind of. I won a race and I was in the chase. I did not have any consistency whatsoever. I think I had maybe 2 top 10s other than my win. So I really didn't have that great of a season last year. I mean, I think I finished 5th in the points, and I got some breaks in the chase. But yeah, I'm really glad that we came out here and got a good, solid top 3 finish, and show them that last year wasn't a fluke, and we're gonna go for the championship this year. Pretty excited.
Now, we talk about being excited and all that stuff, and we move on to Alabama. We go to Talladega next week. Garrett, it's got a little bit of a wider racing surface here than Daytona. Are you excited for that track, or do you like to stick to the more narrow Daytona that we raced here tonight?
Oh, I absolutely prefer Talladega because, I mean, you can have 3-4 lanes of racing. Even with this drafting package we have now, 3 lanes will work there. So it gives the drivers a lot more room to maneuver and work and get position. So, I mean, tonight, making the second line work was a struggle. So I'm very excited. If it was up to me, we'd be running every week at Talladega. So, yes, I'm very excited.
Impressive run by that 4 machine of Garrett Atwell. Garrett, we know you can't get it done by yourself. Sponsors, shout-outs. Who makes it happen for that 4 machine?
Nike, my sponsor this year, they hopped on board with me. Atomic Church, www.atomicchurch.com. It's in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Check it out. Want to give a shout-out to Carl Edwards. He's been, my favorite driver for years in NASCAR, and he's stepping away from the sport. Respect him for what he's doing, and just wish him the best of luck in the future endeavors.
Well, we thank you for taking the time and chatting with us, Garrett. We wish you luck through the rest of this 2017 season.
Thanks, man.
And there you have it, guys. That's your 3rd place finisher, Garrett Atwell. Evan, what a wild, Friday the 13th race that we had. Anything that could have happened did happen, and we saw that here tonight. Now, moving on to next week at Talladega, like I mentioned to, Talladega, a little bit of a wider surface here. What are we to expect here next week?
I think that based on, how we've talked with these guys over the course of these seasons, they like Talladega better. Daytona's fun. There are guys who historically have more success at Daytona than Talladega, but I think that the overall product at Talladega is a little bit more fun, Rachel. They mix it up because that start-finish line isn't in the center of the tri-oval. It's a little bit longer. It's a little bit wider. Speeds are up just a little bit, and it means that not that these guys weren't moving around tonight, but there's that much more room to play around with for these guys going into that. And we're going to get into this rhythm back and forth with Daytona and Talladega. It's not going to be a point of topic until race 5, but we do have a couple of trips to the Daytona Circa 07, so just as we've seen in past seasons, we're in for a good championship.
Oh, we certainly are, Evan. It's going to be a fantastic year here with the Super Speedway Cup. And this combination of tracks is great because it does mean these guys have to be good on all of them, including the narrow, bumpy Daytona 2007 circuit, which is going to be absolutely fantastic to race on. But Talladega, it is an absolute favorite. It is wide. You can comfortably run 3 wide all day long. 3 wide, you can go 4 wide at Talladega, sometimes even 5 if you push it. It is a huge track and it is fantastic. The racing is always close, and the big one, it is always big.
We know that this season has gone through a lot of changes over the past couple of years in this championship, but I think we're back with something that we've seen a few seasons ago that works, and we're excited for this championship to go on through. You can find out more information about this Super Speedway Cup Series on their website at superspeedwaycup.com. You could also access that at superspeedway.club, and you could also make sure to tune in with us on LSRTV and iRacing Live on nights other than Friday. We have one more broadcast coming up this week. Tomorrow night at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern is the United Sim Racing BNC Lawn and Landscaping Truck Series. You can go to our website, find a full and extended look at our broadcast schedule for the month of January at www.livesimracing.com, and we also encourage you to stay up to date with us on social media to not miss anything. You can subscribe to us and watch our broadcasts live on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/LSRTV. You can give us a follow on Twitter at LSRTV, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/LSRTV official. Until next time, though, that wraps things up here tonight from Daytona Beach, Florida. On behalf of the entire team at LSRTV LLC, for the folks behind the scenes, and for the broadcast crew tonight. For myself, Evan Pasoko, for Rachel Whiteford, Chris Murdoch, and Cisco Scaramouza, I want to thank you for tuning in and give a congratulations to your Super Speedway 500 champion. Under unique circumstances, Josh Ball takes the win on this, the Friday the 13th. We will see you in 1 week's time as this season rolls on from Talladega. Until then, good night.